The biggest question mark surrounding the Broncos offseason is the status of quarterback Russell Wilson, who was benched for the final 2 games of last season. If the Broncos choose to part ways with Wilson, they could turn to the draft to replace him as they have the 12th pick. Mike, what do you think the Broncos' priority is?
Yeah, remarkably, Russell Wilson's going to get paid $39 million not to be there. So I think the axiom of win for today and develop for tomorrow really applies at the quarterback position, which is keep Jarrett Stidham. Sean Payton does not want to go through a total rebuild, especially in year 2. And then with the 12th pick, J.J. McCarthy may be sitting there. And that's what's so interesting because Denver and the Raiders are picking back-to-back. But that really sets up great for them because Stidham is a veteran player that they could go win with. Let J.J. McCarthy sit for a year, learn under Sean Payton, and then they could be sort of off to the races for a while. So that's, to me, the best way they can approach this. Move on from Russell Wilson, draft a quarterback, but don't necessarily play him right away.
We all know who the top 3 quarterbacks in the draft are, but it's interesting. J.J. McCarthy getting a lot of love, and I think he should. Let's go back to Russell Wilson. In his 2 seasons with the Broncos so far, Wilson ranks 25th out of 32 qualified quarterbacks in terms of QBR. That's a significant decline, as you might imagine, from his 10 seasons with the Seahawks, when Wilson ranked in the top 10. So many are like, man, what a bad deal. But you got to remember what Russell Wilson was when he was with the Seahawks. Mike, what do you see as possible landing spots for Wilson?
Laura, this is fascinating. He's going to get paid $39 million. He was a starter and a high-end player for a long time. First of all, he has to decide if he wants to play. And then if I'm him, go resurrect your career for a year. And then in 2025, you could be a frontline player again. I actually like the New York Jets. The New York Jets need a productive, inexpensive veteran backup. And I know it's unusual to have him and Aaron Rodgers in the same room, but for 1 year, I think it's a good place for him to invest because he needs to show that, hey, I'm going to humble myself, I'm going to learn from my mistakes, and I'm going to come out better on the other end. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out because he will sign for the minimum with another team if he wants to play.
Yeah, I just don't see Russell Wilson doing that. I think the money has changed in this game. Russell Wilson's already made close to $270 million playing football. He's going to, whether he plays a snap or not this upcoming season, is going to make another nearly $40 million. Like, I just don't know that you can get a guy that's done the things that he's done. He's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. He's been a MVP caliber quarterback to say, hey, go make $1 million, $1.1 million, have no security that we would keep you if things go poorly, or have no security that you're actually going to be the starter, or, hey, come just watch somebody else play. I just don't see a guy like that doing it. For a little perspective, Carson Wentz hadn't even made half that amount, and he wasn't signed by anybody until week 10. And that was in large part because of his decision of, I don't want to go to that situation.
Yeah.
So, and he hasn't accomplished anything near what Russell Wilson has accomplished. Look, I'm not sure there's a landing spot.
Well, I could tell you 2 landing spots. I think Atlanta and Pittsburgh are 2 landing spots. Those are 2 situations that need quarterback play. You look at Pittsburgh over the last 2 years. Kenny Pickett, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Look at Atlanta last year. Desmond Ridder, 12 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Even last year in a struggling year for Russell Wilson, he did not play up to par by any stretch of the imagination. 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns. 8 interceptions. So Russell Wilson, yes, you could argue the contract is highly overpaid, right? I get that. But there are certain teams that need a quarterback. And so the conversation shouldn't be, in my mind, he should go somewhere and back up or resurrect his career or figure out, take a year off. No, this dude wants to play. And to the money piece of like, okay, yes, $39 million, whatever. 1 year, $1 million minimum contract plus a $39 that's guaranteed. All this dude wants, at least in my estimation, if I was a quarterback, is an opportunity not to resurrect your career, but to show what you can do without a rookie head coach, show what you can do without a coach who's actually telling you to essentially take a pay cut during a 5-game winning streak, or we're going to cut you or bench you. So for me, it's that opportunity. No, he's not best in the world. At least he hasn't proven that the last couple years. But the way we're talking about Russell Wilson, we're talking as if there aren't 2, 3, or 4 teams that are in dire need of a quarterback. And oh, by the way, a few of those teams don't have the top 1, 2, 3, or 4th pick overall.
I just think, look, I think he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks on the planet right now. Like, I think that is true. I think he could help Atlanta. I think if he were in Pittsburgh, I don't think that he can walk in and say, like, hey, you are definitely the starter with Kenny Pickett and where he is in his stage of the career. And I would need someone to show me the example of a quarterback who's actually done something like that, to say, hey, everything I've accomplished, the fact that I've made this money, I'm due this money no matter what, and I'm going to go in and compete for something without any security when I could end up getting embarrassed by the situation. Like that, to me, I don't, as competitive as Russell Wilson certainly is, I don't know why at 35 years old, with what he's accomplished, you would ever sign up for that.
Well, he's talked about wanting to play until his 40s. That's one reason. Another reason is the amount of money he spends on his body, right? You talk about him and Steph Curry, LeBron, these guys spending $1 million on their body every year. That's another reason. Another reason, too, is you talk about the security, and then maybe let's say he's fighting for a spot. You say it's Pittsburgh or whatever. Well, the security is this. Okay, you're getting that $39 million. You're playing for a minimum contract. Let's say he doesn't perform, or let's say halfway through the season he bench or whatever. If you want to cut him, there's other teams that might still need quarterbacks at that time, right? I don't think that's going to happen, right? If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm saying, okay, I could have my defense, Mike Tomlin, and then a stable quarterback at Russell Wilson. Let's say I don't get Justin Fields. A major upgrade from anybody else that's currently on their roster. And so I take that chance if I'm Russell Wilson. I take that chance if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's say I don't get Justin Fields. And for me, it's hard to say, well, why would Russell Wilson want to keep on playing this game? He's getting so much money. You never know, man. Like, the game, sometimes it's a deal about purpose. It's a deal about passion, deal about opportunity. Like, the check's still cash regardless if you play or not. Put me on that field. Let me risk it. You don't believe in me? Great. But at least let me get an opportunity to show I can play for a team that actually needs a quarterback. That's my biggest thing. If there's 32 teams that have 32 quarterbacks, that's a different story. But there's a few teams that are in dire need, and I think that Russell Wilson could actually fill that need significantly.
Yeah, we don't know what's inside him and what's burning and why you would play in some of those situations. There's a massive amount of humble pie to go to a place without knowing that you're going to get a spot. And typically guys that have been, to the top of the mountain, they don't sign up for that. And in terms of Russell Wilson, who he was in Seattle and who he is now, like if we're talking about finding a quarterback, to throw, 27 touchdowns and, 9 interceptions. Well, look, you might be able to get that out of Jimmy Garoppolo, and there might be, an easier path to sign him and a willingness to have any role on your football team.
Laura, just to put a ribbon on this conversation, fundamentally, we're going to see if Russell Wilson loves football, and I don't think any of us would begrudge him if he doesn't want to play. I would just tell you from a front office perspective, while not impossible, it would be very difficult to sign with a team in 2025 if he sits out this year. If he wants to continue to play and hopefully start in 2025, he needs to be on a roster this season, and that's ultimately a decision he'll have to make.
Yeah, last point for me is, what has Russell Wilson done to show us that he doesn't love football? That's my only thing, right? Like, look at last year. Okay, man, if you don't take this pay cut, we're going to cut you. He didn't report that. Like, that leaked somewhere else, and all of a sudden he confirmed it, but he still played. Yes, they were 1-5 the first 6 games. I get it. Defense was giving up 33 points a game, gave up 70, gave up 28, I think it was 35. Like, it was bad. Defense turned around. Sure, Russell Wilson won 5 in a row. There was some good. Then there was bad again, right? Last 4 games, 1-3. So I just, the idea of, like, he has to prove he loves it, I just don't know where that's come from. What has he done to show us that he doesn't love it? I haven't seen that piece. So just because we haven't seen someone humble themselves in this way before doesn't mean it can't happen.
The one thing about Russell Wilson is he is able to be patient here and wait and see where some of these other quarterbacks land and who gets who in the draft, who trades for who. There could be an ideal landing spot that we're not thinking of right now. Also, I would like to point out that I know for a fact Mike T spends $1 million on his body too. So you and Russ have that in common.